Hey, it's Neo, and welcome back to Lazy Manifesting. And this is more like a audio. And I say video, but I was gonna say video, but it's not. It's just audio. It's just me and my voice just talking to you, and just a picture of something that I did on Procreate for the thumbnail. First off, I want to say thank you for everyone who's been subscribing. It's exciting to see how fast this channel is growing. And yeah, this is more like a story time because a few days ago I reacted to 3D Unwanted Circumstances. I was basically talking to a specific person, and they said some things that triggered me, and then I spiraled down to, my own human experience in which I felt sad and guilty and shameful and all these heavy negative emotions and thoughts that just went through my mind. And that being said, I'm also very grateful and thankful that like my SP stayed with me. And this is like through video calls, through a video call, and they stayed with me, and they reminded me that they love me and that they want the best for me and they want me to be happy, which in the moment I didn't grasp, but looking back at it, I was like, wow, I've come a long way from the old version of myself that was even a bit more reactive than that. And I'm also proud of myself for like before maybe I would like blame them for making me feel a certain way, and this time I didn't. I did the best. I'm now at a point that I'm self-aware enough to know that it's a me thing and not a them thing. Does that make sense? So even though I was like crying and upset in the moment, as I was talking to this amazing, beautiful person, I also was observing myself, and I could tell that this was an old pattern, and this is coming from a place where like everything is going so well, and I've been wanting to manifest this thing, which is in my mind a very big deal to me because it's like one of the most important things in my life. It's one of the biggest desires I've ever had in my entire life. So when I heard certain things that are like basically the opposite of what I wanted to hear, it upset me. And I think it's important to express this because like we're all human, right? Even like teachers and people who teach self-development, psychology, spirituality, manifesting, we're all human, so we're always going to have human experiences, right? But the beautiful thing about this sort of perspective, right, whether it's spirituality or even going to therapy and psychology, it's like it's all about self-awareness, right? The more self-aware you are, the less you'll identify with the 3D in this sense. Yes, I got upset. I was crying. I was mad. I felt shameful. I felt embarrassed for even reacting in such human way, right? But at the same time, my SP was there, like reminding me that they love me, that they want the best for me, and they just want me to be happy. And looking back, even though it's been a few days, like holy heck, that is quite a big thing. In like in God's perspective, in a bird's eye perspective, like your SP, someone that you've been wanting to manifest for so long, is telling you how much they care about you, whereas before they wouldn't really give you the time of day because of how you were reacting before, like your old patterns, your old self. That's a huge improvement. So I think that's what they mean by circumstances don't matter. um, Circumstances don't matter, and Bashar says this, right? Bashar, Daryl Anka, it's like circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters. And that's what manifesting is all about. Manifesting is all about unlearning, like becoming self-aware of knowing who you truly are, and unlearning the thoughts, behaviors, patterns that are not truly you, your authentic, genuine self. I'm talking about like if you want to go into like holistic psychology, like I'm talking about your inner kid, right? Your inner kid is that when you were a kid growing up, you loved so many things. You loved these cartoons, these characters, these books, all these things that like this music that made you who you are, that makes you so happy on the inside. But maybe once you got into your teen years or even in your 20s, maybe you felt like embarrassed for, I don't know, like for me, I remember I was a freshman. Yeah, I think I was a freshman in high school. And I was paired up with this one kid who, he seemed pretty cool. And I was nonchalantly, I was like, yeah, so I was watching like pro wrestling, WWE at the time. And I was like a huge fan of wrestling. And he sort of judged me for it, right? And he's like, what? You watch wrestling? And he kind of snickered. And I felt bad. I felt shame, right? And I remember I stopped watching wrestling after that. And I mean, it did kind of get boring, but like I did stop watching wrestling up until now, 2023. Yeah, 2023. I started watching wrestling again, and oh my god, I love it. Especially Rhea Ripley. I think it's thanks to her that I came back to wrestling. Mommy, if Dominic was not in the picture, talking about kayfabe, then I might be thinking about going into wrestling myself. Anyways, so yeah, like that's an example of how, when you're learning how to navigate the world as a young adult, as a teen, you get this ego because you're self-protecting yourself so much from being shamed or being laughed at for liking certain things. And when you were a kid, you had no ego, right? Or mostly. Like you still loved like Pokemon, Hillary Duff, all those things, and you even sang and stuff, and it didn't have to be such a shameful thing up until you grow older, and then you like get made fun of for certain things, because in the moment it doesn't feel like that, obviously, but like now as an adult you're like, oh man, like those kids were just like self-conscious and you were like easy pickings. Anyway, going back to me reacting, it was just like 3 hours of me feeling sorry for myself. And before, like a few years ago, before I learned about manifesting and being this self-aware, it lasted for a month. I'm ashamed. Oh, see, even that's shameful to admit. But yeah, it lasted for about a month to get over a certain thought pattern or behavior. And so what I did, in conclusion, right? After that initial call, I, went back to my send self, in the sense of like I love showers. I love the water, so I took a shower, calmed down a little bit, and thought back and self-reflected on like what happened, why did that trigger me, why this. And it all comes down to what they say, right? It's like you identify with the current 3D circumstances so much, right, that you forget who you are. You forget that you're God, or you are part of God. So that's why we react, because in that moment we forget who we are. And in forgetting, you know, there's fear, there's anxiety, there's like doubt and stuff, because like you're hearing certain things and identifying with those unwanted things, that you react. And it sucks, but at the same time it's very human. And but on the flip side of that, like, because there's also, I'm a very yin yang Taoist type of person, so like there's good in the bad and bad in the good. The good part about this is that I learned and discovered certain things that I was not aware, that I need to be aware of, right? You don't have to work or on healing anything, because when you know about manifesting and stuff, you like just being aware of certain things that are not you anymore, the less likely the next time it will happen. And if it does, then it'll be less and less. Even when I was in therapy before manifesting, like that's what my therapist told me. Like, you don't have to work on this thing that is, pulling you back. You just have to be aware of it, and it'll slowly dissipate. It's the same thing with manifesting. It's like, oh, you reacted, you got sad, you got angry, you got upset. That's okay. And like Neville Goddard says, forgiveness of so let's go back to like what sin means according to Neville Goddard, which I love. Sin is missing the mark, or missing, not being focused on your intention, on your ideal outcome, right? And so that's sinning. And forgiving, which is what the Bible and the message of like Jesus gives us, is forgiveness. And according to Neville, forgiveness is basically forgetting forgetting that identity, that version of you that like reacted a certain way or didn't want that thing, or hyper focused on the unwanted. So forgiving is basically like acknowledging, being aware that that pattern, that thought, that emotion was there, that reaction was there, and accepting that and loving that. Like, I love that that happened, because it brought more awareness to me, and it's just my inner kid, myself, trying to protect me from, being emotionally hurt by a certain thing, right? By being aware of that, it will just dissipate. The reason why certain emotions, especially heavy negative emotions, are quote unquote hard to get rid of is because we're judging them, and we're judging ourselves for that, which is an endless cycle. And that's the point of forgiveness, right? When you forgive, you're forgetting that identity. Does that make sense? You're accepting, you're acknowledging that that happened, and that's okay. That's the whole point of the Bible. It's like, oh, you did this bad thing? That's a judgment. But that's okay, because you're human. And God loves you. You, yourself, loves you. People love you. You're still lovable. You're still likable. So you can always come back to God, right? You always come back to source, the universe, because you are the universe. And by remembering that, then you get to decide, who do you say that you are? Who do you want to be? And who are you now? By being aware or self-aware of the God sourceness of you. Does that make sense? So in conclusion, whenever you react to things, don't shame yourself. Like, and it's okay if you do. that's the other part, right? Like, it's okay if you shame yourself, as long as you try to remember that you are forgiven the minute that you accept that that happened and that you're human and that's okay. Because you're human. And there's sometimes going to be off days. There's going to be some off moments, whether with an SP, with a career and money, whether with health concerns. It doesn't matter. There's always going to be something that like might seem negative in the moment. And our job is to be aware of that and also try to see the positive things when we do react in that way. Like for me, I'm seeing like my SP expressing how much that they love me, which is huge. Huge. That's a huge win. By forgiving myself, I can then, and you know, accepting that that happened, I can then change the story. Because when you don't forgive yourself, you're shaming, you're judging yourself, which creates a cycle, right? So the minute you're self-aware and you're like, you know, that happened, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I forgive myself for reacting that way, I then get to choose who I am. Then get to remind myself of who I truly am, and I feel better. And guess what happened the next day? We had a nice time. So yeah, like if you're going through a hard time right now, please, 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 like know that it might suck right now in this moment, but there's always a new day. And acknowledge that you are part of this amazing, crazy existence. And by doing so, you know, is forgive yourself, because you will allow it to forget. You'll forget about it naturally. You don't have to do anything. And then you'll be able to choose and manifest your desires. So, yeah, hopefully this helps someone out there. I appreciate you sticking to the end, because I think this is gold. And, you know, there's more videos coming up. I'm still experimenting with, like, how I want this channel to feel and look like. So, yeah, these videos are going to be... sometimes they're just going to be like this, where it's just me talking, or maybe sometimes I'm just going to draw and do these things. I'm lazy as heck, so that's why I'm just like experimenting and see what happens. But I do love doing the thumbnails, so I'm just going to keep doing that. And yeah, so thanks for listening. Hopefully this helps, and I'll see you next time.